Welcome in, y'all. Divisional round just about a day away now, and we are going to be doing some locks. We did these in the regular season, did pretty good with them against the spread overall in the regular season. I was really, really good. In the playoffs, there's limited games, so the locks are going to have to get creative stuff. I had to, dig to find. We're going to have some fun with it. So we're going to start off the first one. It's Buffalo and Denver. I'll go through one for each game. That was my goal, to get one for each game that I felt pretty good about. And this is one, the line's basically even on this game, right? It's a toss-up game. If you want my picks for every game, by the way, as far as who's going to win the spread, I already made a video on that on Tuesday. Every Tuesday I do that. You can go check that out. But this one here, what we're looking at is the first half over under. It's currently sitting at 23.5, which is actually a little high, believe it or not. That's on the high side of first half over unders, and I like that to go under 23.5 in the first half for several reasons here. You have a defensive team like Denver coming in healthy and rested off of a bye. And sure, rest can sometimes hurt teams. It's talked about, but usually it's the offense that it affects. The offense needs to get in a rhythm, and rust, I feel like, is rougher for them. A defense, I feel like rest just helps. They get out there and they can just go full throttle down after them. So I think that's really good. And then you have Buffalo, a team that's beat up, coming off a short week. This Denver defense could get all over them. Could slow Buffalo down. Buffalo started slow last week offensively. And then you look at Denver and an offense that struggled, here and there all season long. And like I said, coming off a bye can hurt offenses. I don't think they put up a ton of early points. Maybe they get a nice opening drive, right? They've had time to prep for this. Could be a really good opening drive script. But I just think this first half is fairly lower scoring. And I was going to keep it simpler and do the game total. But part of me was like, playoff games, especially when you have offenses that are capable. Denver's is capable. Buffalo, they have Josh Allen. It could be a second half, fourth quarter type of explosion. So that's why I went with the first half, under 23.5 on that one. Then we'll talk about the next game. Saturday night, you have San Francisco visiting Seattle. Seattle's favored by a full 7.5 points in this one. Really a monster line, if you ask me. I know San Francisco's beat up. They just lost Kittle. They've been injured, all year. They just lost 13-3 to the Seahawks in San Francisco a couple weeks ago. I get all that. But San Francisco is an incredibly well-coached team. I touched on that in my video on Tuesday. This is a very well-coached team. I actually thought about trying to figure out what San Francisco's point total was and to go over that. But then I was thinking about it. I was like, I'm not sure exactly which way Kyle Shanahan's going to play this. I think the offense could have that capability. I think he could scheme them to way more than 3 points. I feel pretty confident in that. But also, when you have a team that might feel a bit weaker than the other, you might just want to grind the game, slow the game down, and then make your move in the fourth quarter. But for that reason, as far as, staying away from the points, what I like here is actually San Francisco first half plus 4.5 points. I really like them full game plus 7.5, but I didn't want to lean too much in that because I already made my pick that in the other video. And first half is kind of nice because if Seattle were to blow this thing open, the injuries catch up to San Francisco and stuff, I don't think it'll happen right away. I think, like I said, offenses could struggle right off the bat, being rusty. I think Sam Darnold, big moment in the playoffs. He needs to get himself into the games, settle the nerves. I think San Francisco can have a good first half. I think they'll have a good first drive, as they're very capable of doing with Shanahan at the helm. I think Robert Saleh have something cooked up for Seattle. So I think in the first half they can keep this thing close. I think they keep it close all game, but if it were to kind of stretch out, I don't think it would happen until the end. That's why I have San Francisco plus 4.5 first half. And I went back and looked at it. If that was the first half line, which it wasn't, right? Higher, lower, depending on who they were playing. If that was the first half line for Kyle Shanahan's 49ers in every playoff game they've played, they'd be 9-2 on that line. Now, Obviously, I know they've had some dominant teams, so that seems a bit unfair. But you have to remember, there's a couple of times they made the playoffs. They were not regarded as a high talented team, right? They were good and solid, but they weren't like some powerhouse that we've known them to be over the last couple years. So he stays close in playoff games. I don't expect a blowout there, but I like the first half close there. This next one, Houston, New England. I looked around at a bunch of different stuff. Nothing I really loved, right? The over under for this one's only like 40 and a half points. And it feels like it might go under that just with how defensive these teams can be, and especially Houston, right? But just playoffs, you can have a burst of scoring late. I don't know. But what I do feel good about, and maybe I shouldn't, but I felt great about it all week. Anytime I look at these two teams, all I can think about is I don't know if it's by 2, if it's by 10, but I just think New England wins this game. Like I Houston is so elite defensively, maybe one of the best defenses we've seen in a long time. But I for a gut feeling, I really really think New England wins this game. Um, and that's really all I have to say about it. It's a feeling. I like May. I like Vrabel. I still don't trust Stroud in that Texans offense. I think the Patriots can put up enough points. I think they'll get the job done at home and move to that AFC title game. But it should be a good game, though. I do expect it to stay close. Then we'll jump into the final game of this divisional round weekend. It's the Rams and the Bears. And this one I think is super interesting. There's been a lot of talk about the weather in this one. 18 degrees feels like 5, which is very, very cold, especially for a team coming from Southern California. There's been way colder games, though, don't get me wrong. Rams actually played in a game that almost had this exact temperature last year in New York. Rams got the win there. But one thing I think, regardless of who's going to win this game, I think what I like the most is Rams over 26 and a half points. And now let me explain why, right? I have some stats here and some reasonings to back this up. Rams have done that 12 times this season. That's a pretty good track record on that. That is a very high number, and they played some very good defenses in those times. They've done that 12 times this season. The Bears have allowed that 8 times, which is, close to half the times, which that's a big number to be letting up about half the time. Chicago's defense is pretty weak, especially against the ground game, and in colder weather, you might see more ground game. But another thing I like about this one is I think this number might even drop, because I saw the over-under was at like 50 something and it's dropped to 48 and a half. Everyone keeps hearing about the weather and they keep getting scared and dropping it. But, Chicago, I think they'll be fine in the weather, right? They've already played a couple games in pretty darn cold weather this year. I think they'll be fine. And I think the Rams are going to be more fine than you think. Couple reasons. Last year they went into Philly, snowstorm. Mind you, it was about 10 degrees warmer. But they had no issues there other than, a fumbling issue, which again, that was to the snow. And then this one, I keep seeing the stat go around saying Stafford 1-8, 1-9 in these type of games, but that's actually wrong. That is actually a stat in rain/snow or poor rain/snow below 40 degrees is 1-8, 1-9. Since 2015, with no weather, no precipitation, which this game won't have any. It's going to be a dry cold. Since 2015, he is 5-2 with 14 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in games under 35 degrees. Mind you, this one's going to be 18, but I just don't think that this is going to be as big of a deal as people make it. I think both these teams have amazing offenses. I think both defenses are a little weak. I think the points are going to be put up. I think you could also like the game total over here as well. So let me know what y'all think. What are your takes for this week? Like I said, got some weird ones this week I had to dig into. Just we're getting less and less games, but it should be fun. This should be a great weekend of football. People often call this the best weekend in football, and I think it might just be. So we'll see. Should be a good time.